This video tutorial will show you how to use Excel to find the p-values when the population standard deviation is known and when it's not known. So here we've got the formulas that we'll need to solve our p-values. So say you've already solved your z-statistic, and your z-statistic has been found to be negative 2.67. Now, with a left tail test, we're always going to have a negative. A right tail test, it'll be positive for our z-values because it's on the different sides of the curve. So let's go ahead and plug in. If we do equals norm.s.dis, parentheses, our z-value is negative 2.67. I'll do comma and true because it's cumulative, and hit enter. That gives me a p-value of 0.0038, a pretty small p-value. Now, that's on the left side. And remember, areas cannot be negative when you're solving for it because we're finding an area. But now let's do the right tail test, and it should give us the same thing. If we do equals 1 minus the normal distribution, S-D-I-S-T, and our z-value on our right tail test is positive, so it'd be 2.67, comma, and I hit true, and I close out my parentheses and hit enter. We can see that our p-values on both sides of the tail of the test are the same because I have the same z-values on either side, just positive for right side and negative for left side. Now, when we do a two-tail test, all we have to do is take the one tail you found and double it. So if we were doing this by hand, I would simply take my probability here of 0.0038 and times it by 2. But if you want to do in Excel, you can do the same thing. So here I would do equals 2 times, so that's my doubling, of the formula 1 minus norm.s.dist, parentheses, my z-value is the 2.67. I'll do comma, true. Note that here I've got these two lines on either side of my z. What that means is absolute value. So you don't have to worry about putting in a negative. Just put the absolute value of our z-statistic. Now you want to make sure you close out your parentheses properly. And when you hit enter, I can see that my two-tail test has a p-value of 0.0076. If I add my two tails from my left and my right of 0.0038, I get my doubled two-tail test at 0.0076. So we know we've done it right. Let's go ahead and do the same thing now for our p-values when we don't know the population standard deviation. Now, I don't think the textbook or any of the homework assignments has you doing this too much, but I want you to know it in case you ever have to use it for work. So here, again, we'll use the same z-values, but we're doing t-distribution in that we don't know the population standard deviation. But say we do know our sample size, so we can come up with our degrees of freedom. Say our sample size is 16, so our degrees of freedom is n minus 1, or 16 minus 1, which gives us a degrees of freedom of 15. So let's go through. We'll do equals t.dist and parentheses. My t-value, again in a left tail test, should be negative, so it'd be negative 2.67, comma, my degrees of freedom is 15, and I'll type in true. And hit enter, and it gives me a p-value of 0.0087 in my t-distribution. Recall that with t-distributions, it's a little bit more spread because we don't know the population standard deviation. So that's why our p-values are different when we're looking at known and unknown standard deviations, even with the same critical values. So let's do our next test, which is equals on the right side, t.dist.right, right? So we're doing the right tail test. Parentheses, our t is 2.67. Again, this is just an example, so I'm just using the 2.67 because it's in one of the homework assignments. So again, our comma and our degrees of freedom is 15 still. I close it out, and I should get the same p-value on my right side. Now again, with a two-tail test, you can just take your one tail and double it, or you can use Excel using the formula here provided. Equals t.dist.2t for two-tail, and our t is the 2.67, and our degrees of freedom is the 15. When I close that out with my parentheses and hit enter, I get 0.0175, which when I add up my two tails above, is this. So we can see whether you're using Excel to get your two tail, or you simply double what you have in a single tail calculation, you should be good. And that's how you find the p-values for when the population standard deviations are known, using a z-test statistic, or when the population standard deviation is unknown, you're using the t-test statistic.